Today I'm talking about the anime about Attack on Titan and existentialism because I think Attack on Titan is it's a very good anime in these 10 years, and I think they link to few ideas, which is alienation and existentialism. So firstly, I need to explain the terminology about what is existentialism. What is that? What is existentialism? Existentialism is very important in classical philosophy, which is moved towards the favorite quote. I think many people hear that existence precedes absence. So what is that? I think it represents a philosophical shift to modernism. For example, what they're refusing to ask the abstract question, such as about what is the purpose of life, what is the essence of human. So basically, existence, we don't care the absence. We towards follow to the existence. We don't ask what is the origin, what is the metaphysical meaning of the thing, of the human life. We don't see in this perspective. So existentialism rejects seeking essentialism, as I mentioned. For example, Aristotle or the Plato Christianity traditions, which is seeking the absolute God, absolute form, for example Plato, there's a logical form, for example Aristotle. Instead, existentialism begins from individual existence and the lived process of a life. For example, I will see my life as a whole process from I'm born, I'm living 6 years old, I'm living from 20 years old, I'm living 24 years old, and I keep going. I don't find what is me after that or something. I'm not asking this question. Instead, I'm asking what is the whole process of the life, and then what is the meaning of the life through the whole process. So I think this is a very good overcome, and I think Attack on Titan represents this idea. Attack on Titan is a really good anime in these 10 years, as I mentioned before, because it is not only talking about the giant and battle, but it is a story about alienation and existentialism. I mentioned that in first part, but here I will do more depth analysis, and I will involve 3 philosophers in this anime, which is Hegel, Sartre, and Heidegger, and the focus will be on the main character today, which is Armin and Alan, and they fight for freedom. The story is built for their fighting for freedom inside the war. So I think I want every audience or every philosophical perspective to think, like philosophy people to think about this question, right? So what is freedom? Should we free from freedom? So firstly, I am introduced about Alan Yeager, Alan and Armin's living background. I want to go through their background and see their life perspective. I think firstly I need to talk their childhood and the background about the scenes in Attack on Titan. Their life, firstly we mentioned their life inside the war. So the background of Alan and Armin both lived in the war. And what is the purpose of the war? It's defense against Titan. Because the Titan is not tall enough, they never can climb inside the wall. So they are safe. People are safe. Many people feel satisfied, but only these two people, Alan and Armin, doesn't get satisfied. Because for them, war is not only for protective. They always symbolize alienation. Because as human, who should originally belong to nature, this is what Armin perspective. For Alan perspective, they think they shouldn't live like a livestock, and I will talk about this part later. He think this is not the way. They both thinking this is not the way to prevent the danger, because they think they shouldn't cut themselves off from it out of the fear. By remaining content in their comfort zone, they fall or refuse to use their freedom. They escape uncertainty, even sealing away knowledge. For example, other humans exist beyond the war, or that ocean is real. Like there's a lot of things people should explore. But people don't want that because they scared the danger, they scared get eaten by the Titan. So they try to escape themselves to reality, which is ignore the objective. the objectivity, the environment. For example, the reality of how Titan will threaten our freedom. Like how about maybe they don't think about if the Titan attack the war, how they should do it. Can they defend? They didn't realize or rationalize. They didn't reflect this scenario or rationalize or use some problem to solve this problem. So I think they're escaping truth. And later on, I will mention one philosopher, which is Hegel. He's more strongly analyzed about what is alienation, and I think this is really match about this anime. Firstly, I'm talking about how Hegel thinks about alienation and how to overcome alienation. He thinks overcome alienation must go through few process, which is externalization, misrecognition, and sublation. Spirit first externalize itself into the world, then alienation come into the spirit and must face self-recognition, resist, and conflict. For example, I just give an example. When I make a kite, the process of objectification obtain estrangement immediately. The kites in the external world become others, so they are no longer tied to myself. It is the first alienation because I put my idea to the objective world. Similar, individual encounter alienation when they're facing nature, institution, custom, and laws. For example, when we're facing those bunch of laws, those kind of rules for Attack on Titan, they will become in this case when they realize Titan is there. It's not what they expect. It's others. They realize others exist, which appear as external forces. At this stage, it confronts us. It seems like a pure others. Externalization, misrecognition, and sublimation co-occur. Dialectic motion shows tension to deny, resist, and even oppose to others. Those three corresponding levels, including turning points, function. First is negate opposition by resolving absolute separation. It demonstrates a rational recognition of both sides without compromising the distinctiveness. So I think this really linked to the Attack on Titan, right? For example, I realize I exist, I realize my idea, and I realize Titan exists. But many people, they struggle to accept Titan exists like the other exists. So this is the first alienation, but they don't grow through accept and grow through the better version. Means they try to solve this problem, or rather they realize how the world looks like. Don't disturb by the Titan, because Titan is the others to stop them to recognize the truth. But the solution of people is not overcome this myself and others, those alienation. Instead, what people doing is escape to find the truth. So many people doesn't finishing themselves. So many people in the war, they just kind of alienation all the time. For me, I just don't totally agree with the Hegel idea, which is you can get the absolute spirit, which is totally understand the world. For me, this is the anti-element, but I will explain this concept later. And I want to go back to Attack on Titan. In the last part, I'm kind of talking about how Hegel have those three concepts, and I'm give more information about how they reach what Hegel think about the final goal. It promote into high synthesis, right? This is what the goal of Hegel wants. The tension between the self and others doesn't resolve through the alienation of others' side or through mature recognition. Both sides hold segments of the self within them, so every act of sublation transforms to alienate others into an expression of self that can understand the others. For example, in Attack on Titan, they need to understand the scenario and understand what is Titan, what is the world. Through this step, spirit ascends the inner stage of dialectic recognition until it reaches the absolute knowing. I don't think it will work, but I think in Attack on Titan, at least people try to explore the world. This is the way of growth for those knowing. Seeing hence, the world appears as spirit unfolding and alienation dissolves. So in the last stage, when we understand using rationale to understand the world, this is what Hegel thinking, alienation dissolves. As I mentioned in the first part, I don't think alienation will actually dissolve, but I think, by still thinking, alienation will get solved by knowing some truth. And I still thinking people should explore their freedom through actions. In the last part, I'm kind of talking about how Hegel have those three concepts, and I'm give more information about how they reach what Hegel think about the final goal. It promote into high synthesis, right? This is what the goal of Hegel wants. The tension between the self and others doesn't resolve through the alienation of other side or through mature recognition. Both sides hold segments of the self within them, so every act of sublation transforms to alienate others into an expression of self that can understand the others. For example, in Attack on Titan, they need to understand the scenario and understand what is Titan, what is the world. Through this step, spirit ascends the inner stage of dialectic recognition until it reaches the absolute knowing. I don't think it will work, but I think in Attack on Titan, at least people try to explore the world. This is the way of growth for those knowing. Seeing hence, the world appears as spirit unfolding and alienation dissolves. So in the last stage, when we understand using rationale to understand the world, this is what Hegel thinking, alienation dissolves. As I mentioned in the first part, I don't think alienation will actually dissolve, but I think, by still thinking, alienation will get solved by knowing some truth. And I still thinking people should explore their freedom through actions. So in the first part, I'm briefly introduced what Hegel concept, right? So I'm just using this quote start from Attack on Titan. Spirit only wins its truth when it finds itself in the absolute dismemberment of itself. In other words, spirit must confront the negative, not avoid it. I think I mentioned that before, yeah. Like we shouldn't avoid those uncertainty outside the world. We must face the uncertainty of reality. If we transform fear into walls, we end up ruled up by what we ourselves have built. This precisely the conditions of the people inside the world. So I'm talking about two people perspective, and which is Alan and Armin. When Armin tells Alan about the sea, both of them feel profoundly unfree. The sea symbolizes the unknown, the truth, but the walls blocks it. So they realized this alienation when there was childhood. Armin, the first time Alan feel very frustrating because they realize maybe outside they have water, they have everything, they have a lot of stuff explorers. So Alan start have this feeling they want freedom, but in the reality, which is people don't want to get free. They are very satisfied in this stage. For Alan's perspective, he feels furious about he's not free. He says that we are caged like a livestock. True freedom is break out and destroy the enemy. The threat is Titan. We should kill all the Titan. We shouldn't live in the war. I should join the army and try to destroy all the Titan and explore the world. This refers to Sartre existentialism. Man is condemned to be free. Existence is a choice, and we can't shift our responsibility to the war, to authority. We must take responsibility for our action. This one which linked to the very beginning idea, existence precedes essence. And the existence, for Sartre's perspective, this is our responsibility. Humans must obey their mission to live their life, to do decision, because they're forced to do decision. And I talk about another perspective, Armin perspective. Armin is the person who introduced Alan. There's a sea, there's a salt water outside the wall, and for him, what means freedom means exploring the unknown and discovering the truth of humanity. He believed that reaching the ocean will allow people to regain hope. Reaching the ocean is the hope of people, like exploring the world like a scientist, exploring, discover, know the uncertainty. Like for him, it's more like a humanistic approach, and this more humanistic form of existentialism. Freedom arises through the rational exploration of the open world, not just by smashing against an enemy. Like this is very different to Attack on Titan. Like for Alan. Alan is focusing on how others threat us. For Armin, what he focuses is how I knows others means the world. And I think he linked to a lot of French Revolution idea, which is we are free, we should explore the world, we should fight for democratic. It's more like a very humanism perspective about the world. And I think his idea is very linked to Hegel, like those history improvements, like those kind of hope. Like Armin shows regain hope. So they're both of dreaming to join the military, because there's one military which is explore outside the wall, which is investigation outside the wall and discover what lies beyond the world. Those actions demonstrate how they want to seek freedom through their actions. So in this one, it's very existentialism, because freedom, there's someone, they still have hope of freedom, and I feel the freedom, and this, it will arise the question, right? Is freedom is innate? Do humans want freedom? Because in this story, I feel there's a children, they feel caged, they feel chained, but they still want to regain hope, and which is very fascinating for Attack on Titan. I think this is very similar to real life. Everyone lies inside their comfort zone, afraid of death and conflict, remain silent and accept the fate. But we must recognize our freedom, and through the act of struggling for it, we become truly free, because we take responsibility for our action. I think I kind of mentioned about how Sartre think about we have a mission about our action. And I think in those elements I kind of mentioned Hegel perspective about the absolute knowing of something. But I feel this is the first part, but later on the story will be more interesting, because Adam faced the first death and Armin foresee his friend really sad, and their behavior take a totally opposite way. So this scene is about how Alan and Armin face the really harsh of the reality against the ideal. So I think the concept of freedom, they must involve some struggle. They must contain nihilism of realism. Only by confronting reality itself, we can gain new insight to existentialism. I think this part is very negates, it's a compliment about how Hegel thinks when we isolate itself, we're going to others, and those others in the world is kind of alienation. But for me, it's not only like that. Freedom itself contain nihilism. For example, when you try to fight freedom, it's not always positive. It must involve some negativity elements, because we are in the reality. For example, when someone try to get some award, or they want to get freedom, they must face some difficulties. For example, other rejection, limitation of the resources, blah 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 blah. So I'm focusing on the first truth, which is Alan facing death, and how Armin and Alan react. When Titan breaks through the wall and Alan's mother is eaten, he suffers really deep trauma. For that on, he's more convinced than ever Titans are the enemy, and only by destroy them, human can reclaim freedom. When he was more kind of thinking this way, but after he stronger belief of killing all the Titans because of his mom eaten by Titan. which is really trauma of the 10 years old person. And he learned something from it. This is the first time Alan confronts death. The death of others is not just an absolute idea. It reflects the shifts from dreaming of ideal freedom to facing the mortal itself. This one is not only the Hegel idea, because Hegel is still talking about the abstract metaphysical understanding. But for here, existential comes because death is a very big topic which many philosophers doesn't mention a lot in these 2000 years. And I will bring this philosopher called Heidegger. Heidegger mentioned one concept about doesn't become really relevant. He bring up this idea, the existence process essence. Yeah, I think this is what I introduced early on. So we shouldn't focus on the results, the final cause, final goals. Instead, we should focus on within the life. And there's a big topic we have to think. What is death? I think when I was small and many people were small, they would think about death existing. Death, but many people, when they grow up, they were avoiding to think about death, or they just accept we will die one day. They don't live their life responsibility. I think, which is very similar to what Heidegger says this idea, existing, and we should not rely on looking for afterlife. He mentioned three big concepts, being towards death. Only when we feel death as our own possibility, so we can live authenticity, resoluteness. In moment of crisis, we must choose responsibility and not escape. Authenticity. By accepting our morality, we open up new possibility and act with genuine resolve. There is good analysis about death. We realize real death, but many people will escape thinking about death, think that's not their responsibility, so they live like others. Or some people, they're too afraid that they're not looking for future, they are living in the fear. So both ways, Heidegger doesn't agree. And I think this really linked to the idea of Attack on Titan, especially Eren. Because Eren in this scene, he definitely realized he'll be died because his mother died in front of him. But he doesn't fear or give up his dream. He overcome the death. And his dream is going to fight Titan as a confrontation with his fear. He knows he's scared, but he still wants to do something. This is essentialism in practice, freedom revealed in extremely. So in Heidegger's perspective, maybe his way so extreme. I don't think Heidegger actually answered this question. But for me, I think Eren, he realized that, he take action, which is really good on existentialism. And I think, which is Hegel doesn't link. Hegel still try to link myself to the world, to the objective world. He tried to use episteme, how to understand by those reflection, negation or something. But for Heidegger, he opened up the new world. And I think Attack on Titan actually really good focus on existentialism. But I feel in the scenes there rise up a question. Since his solo proposed killing a Titan as a mission, right? Does he truly an existentialist, or he just struggled by the single mission, which is killing a Titan instead of exploring the world? Because I think this is very important to distinguish. And I feel this is a very interesting part in Attack on Titan. Because in Attack on Titan, the existentialism seems like we always will reflect to our action really true or really linked to this scenario. For example, I feel I'm free, so I do this decision. But later on we reflect, do I actually free, or I controlled by something, or do my decision is correct? So become an existentialist. Firstly, what is existential is very important. And secondly, do our decision correct? Is it really true? So I feel there's still a reflection there, not what people thinking existentialism is you can do whatever you want. I think later on start really give a lot of explanation for it. But I feel there's a very important certification about existentialism, which is existentialism is a very tough and a very hard philosophical mission. Because we can't tell what is it, we are living in the process. we're living in the world, we're thinking every day. So it seems like we are putting philosophical, not only abstract, distinguish. We are putting philosophy into morality, into daily practice. I think in existential philosophy, as I mentioned, Attack on Titan, they link a lot with existential philosophy. But except Heidegger, I think this brings up the Sartre idea, which extend the idea that human being already exists before any ground purpose, like existence precedes essence. The existence, the existence only, the essence only comes later. It's a temporary outcome of our choice, commitment, or practice. Existentialism starts from Nietzsche, right? With a Nietzsche quote, "God is dead," which denies the transcendent, metaphysical, the absolute knowing, the absolute God. No religion or any philosopher or any scientist can explain or interpret the ultimate meaning. Thus, existentialism opposes and disagree with the absolute God or metaphysical abstract. It shows that ultimate responsibility for individual action lies with human beings themselves. So I think this is a very important part, and I think this is existentialism. We shouldn't follow or believe any authority. For example, people ask us don't go outside the war. The war can protect the human being. And I think this existentialism also really disagree with what Hegel's saying, which is the absolute knowing, because we don't know. Seems like the absolute knowing, this idea is very metaphysics also. And I think Attack on Titan, why I like this anime, is because Attack on Titan is actually talking about a lot of decision. They talk about a lot of suffering, but deep down they still really link to one idea: what is freedom?